This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
Greetings, everybody. What's up? What it do? Yeah, back at you with another video, you know what I'm saying? Dang, what's wrong with y'all? Damn, y'all look stressed out. I know this coronavirus ain't got y'all all stressed out and in a frenzy. Y'all look stressed. Well, let me help you with that stress. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to help you reduce the stress in your life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of people, they come to me like, man, you seem always happy. You ain't never stressed out about nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I try not to be. You know what I'm saying? I try not to get stressed out or mad or nothing, because if I lose my temper, woo. But on another note, let me help y'all with some stress. You know what I'm saying? We need to slow down. You know, sometimes we need to slow down so we can see different aspects of life, you know, that were previously hidden in the frenzy of a busy mind. I mean, it allows us to open to the radiant, joyful feeling that resides within. You know, when our mind isn't racing to the next series of thoughts and holding on tightly to the old ones, we gain access to our third eye and a peaceful feeling of our mental health. I mean, there are many times in life when it seems unrealistic and even impossible to reach a peaceful, loving state of mind. In these times, you know, the coronavirus running and stuff like that, and they saying go stock up on food, you know, it seems that, you know, the stress in our life is too much to handle, and that speeding up is the only answer. You know, my goal in this video is to share with you a perspective on stress that will help you, you know, slow down. You gotta slow down. You're moving too fast. Pump your brakes, even in these stressful times. You know, as we gain a deeper understanding of healthy psychological functioning, we begin to see, you know, where stress comes from. You know, where it comes from. And it comes from our own thinking, you know, our own thinking. Stress isn't something that we catch from the environment or other people, you know. On the contrary, it's something that we quite innocently create by not recognizing the thinking, you know, that is creating it. You follow me? You know, I'm not saying that life doesn't, you know, produce situations that perceive as stressful, such as, you know, illnesses and, you know, time deadlines, rush hour traffic, you know, financial problems, you know, but I'm saying that the degree of stress that we experience and the actual stress itself originates within our perception of life, which in terms come from how we are thinking in that moment. by recognizing our thinking, and navigating towards a healthy thought process, we can begin to see how not just how we can manage stress, but actually prevent it from coming, in our sometimes hectic lives or whatever. So I'm going to give you 5 essential steps for reducing the stress in your life. 5 of them. Y'all ready for these 5? Okay, let's go. Number 1 is knowing that inner peace is possible. Our experience in life, it all unfolds within a stream of change. Our accomplishments, moments of glory, problems, and difficulties all have come and gone. The same is true with our thoughts. Every thought that you ever had, every neuron that has ever been formed have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Only one experience in all our lives is always present, although not always experienced. Our mental health, which rests beneath these changing thoughts and experiences, although it's seductive and habitual for most of us to superimpose fearful, negative, harried, and insecure thoughts over our mental health, and the latter is always potentially present. All of us experience stress, as we go through our life, but our experience of stress varies greatly, since it is, dependent on our thinking in that moment. Something feels highly stressful for one person is a delightful adventure for another person. Only the thought varies. All experiences of stress is the result of thought. And hope is a powerful force. When you know in your heart that it's possible to feel peace despite the fact that it's that you aren't experiencing it at the present moment. In your heart that it's possible. And you hope that it's possible. Hope keeps the door open, and provide a window of opportunity, to slow down and gain access to a healthy psychological functioning. Okay, that's number 1. So number 1 was knowing inner peace is possible. You got to know that. Now, let's go with number 2. Number 2 is admitting that getting what you want isn't the ultimate answer. Hey, it's important to understand the distinction between what most people think of as happiness and what is true. See, most people connect happiness with getting what they want. And this type of happiness is superficial and temporary. We're happy when we get what we want, and then we miserable when we don't. We spend a lifetime desperately trying to get what we want most and trying equally hard to avoid getting what we don't want. Life becomes sort of a ping pong game we play with ourselves, chasing what we want and darting away what we don't want. The fears, ups, downs, sideways, and each way. We fill our minds with thoughts, and ideas of what make us happy. I mean, we convince ourselves that, that we would be happy if only our spouse treated us better, treated us differently, or we would be happy if our bills were paid, or, we would be certain if we would be happy if we made more money, or we would be even happier if our child made better grades or something like that. Only if we had more time, we would be happy. The list goes on and on. Each time a desire is fulfilled, we replace it with another one. Always believing that if the next one would only, come true, or we'd feel at peace if we craved another, For example, all right, take this for example. You think that you need twice the income that you currently earning today in order to feel secure. You will feel stressed each time the discrepancy between what you have and what you want enters your mind. The more desperately you want the extra income, the more stressed you feel, Or you meet a new person and immediately you believe that this is the one. And you feel devastated when your new friend turns out to be all too human. You set up conditions in your mind that must be met in order for you to feel happy. And you use this very condition as ammunition against yourself, when it falls short. Or if the person you meet does turn out to be the one for you, you'll eventually become concerned about the possibility of that person letting you down. Without any awareness of our thoughts can deceive us. Your mind will always find a way to cover up positive feelings with desire for life to be different than it is. Let me say that again. The mind will always find a way to cover up positive feelings with the desire for life to be different than it is. I mean, in order to feel less stress in your life, you must, at some level, realize that getting what you want isn't the ultimate answer. Instead, the only answer is to experience thinking that allows you to feel peaceful, whether or not you get what you want. Okay, we're moving on, and this is number 3. This is learning not to deal with or struggle with problems. Let's go in. There are two essential ways to approach stress in your life. The first way is it's the most common way, is to deal with it head on, and to deal with it head on. And with this perceived source of stress, this means that you try to eliminate the source of stress on a case-by-case basis. For example, you feel that your marriage isn't as nourishing as it should be. And your strategy would be to, think about it and try to make it more nourishing. You visit marriage counselings and you read books on troubled marriages, and you would like to think through the problem in an attempt to arrive at a satisfactory solution. I mean, your thoughts might be, if my spouse would listen better, I'd be happier. Or, he or she isn't really interested in what I want. Or, if my spouse would talk more or give a little more feedback, or you might, be happy And you might come to a conclusion such as, he never really did love me, or I think we need a divorce. When you try to think through your stress in this manner, you are engaged in process thinking. The problem with this head-on method of dealing with stress is that the strategy validates the problem. The more we think about the problem, or try to change it, the worse it seems. The worse it seems for the simple reason that we are validating the notion that stress exists outside ourselves. Our thinking keeps us away from, the present moment. Our thoughts do. These are our thoughts that keep us away from the present moment. So if we don't understand where stress actually originates in our thinking, then we will we will either look for ways to, change the so-called source, or for ways to cope or whatever. So, we look for these problems, we try to change it or cope with it, Either way, we fighting an endless battle, We fighting an endless battle that we can't win, with no chance of victory. The solution must bring us back. The solution is for our thoughts to bring us back to our healthy psychological functioning, to the present moment. It should bring us back to the present moment and not take us far away from it. That's the solution for that. Moving along. Okay, number 4 is understanding that stress originates in your thinking. That's a good one. That's where stress originates, in your thinking and our thinking. Stress is not something that happened to us, but rather something that develops within our own thinking. You get me? It develops from the inside out. We decide what it is and what is not, stressful. We decide that. Events are not stressful, per se. They are what we make them. The experience that we make them is what it is. For example, bungee jumping. Bungee jumping may be, a thrill for one person and may cause a nervous breakdown for another one. Investing in the stock market, that seems wise to one person, and foolish for someone else. Working a suicide hotline seems noble for one counselor and create great anxiety for someone else. The fact that you're caught up in your thinking is more relevant to the way that you feel than are the specifics of what you caught up about. And most of us are experts in getting caught up in our thinking. Particularly when we think of something stressful, we might think, for example, that it is critical for your house to be perfectly clean before your guests arrive for the weekend. And when it isn't, you begin to think about how unhappy this makes you. Then thoughts like, my house is never clean, and what are my guests gonna think of me begin to fill your mind. But if you're not conscious of what's happening, these thoughts will multiply until you just having a full-blown thought attack. Your mind just go haywire. But if you can just step back, from the situation and allow yourself to allow your thinking to slow down, you will be able to see your thoughts that you was just blowing the situation out of proportion, rather than accepting the moment as it is. You struggle, by wishing it was different. Your mind tells you that you'd be happy if your house clean, but your house is a mess. You might say that, and you might be correct. You might be correct, but if you remain calm, however, in the moment, you'll know exactly what to do. Rather than feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, you'll simply deal with the situation in the most appropriate manner, and you'll do what's before you and get on with your day. I had to think of that one for a minute. Hey, let's move on to number 5. Okay, now we at the last one. We at number 5. And this one is learning not. I said learning to not allow passing thoughts to turn into thought attacks. That's kind of deep. Let me think of that one for a minute. Hold on. Learning not to allow passing thoughts to turn into thought attacks. Okay, like a single passing thought will rarely lower your spirits or create stress. You understand that? A single passing thought, it will rarely lower your spirits and create stress. The problem is that those harmless individual thoughts can easily multiply and turn into thought attacks. That's if we let them. Our thinking does to stress what water and sunshine does to our garden. Let me run that back. I said our thinking does to stress what water and sunshine does to our garden. As we dwell on our thoughts, the object of our attention will grow in our mind. We can transform a minor annoyance into some enormous source of stress if we let it. If we think about it long enough, it can just grow and grow and grow and, become this big part of stress that off in our mind. This is why so many people get bothered with little things, just the little shit people get bothered over, because they just hold it in their minds, blowing things all out of proportion. And when you blow things all out of proportion, it can be a deadly habit. It starts with a thought. For example, like you at work and your friend Kay, say Kay comes over and says something you don't like, and you dwelling on it in your mind, like Kay shouldn't have said that to me, And now that that thought has come to mind, you can do either one or two things. You can disregard it as a passing thought, or you can focus on it and make it grow. If you dismiss the thought, it's over and done with, and you on to the next thought. At this point, you can calmly decide, whether or not Kay's comments are relevant, or worth getting into it with her about it, or whether you'd be better off ignoring the matter by recognizing that it was just a thought. You know, you keep yourself operating at the present moment of life, one thing at a time. You know, and in this more peaceful state of mind, your wisdom will help you. Your wisdom will help you decide what actions to take, if any. I mean, if you focus on a thought, you know, however it begin to grow, and you know, you feel the stressful effects of what she said to you. You know, Kay shouldn't have said that to me, and she's annoying. I don't even like her annoying fucking voice, and you know, and she's passive aggressive and all this, you know, and you begin to catalog on the irritating qualities of Kay, and remember the times that she wasn't such a good friend, you know, and on you go. And you know, once you get that momentum going, you know, that momentum going, now you having a full-blown thought attack. A thought attack is hard to control. And now that you're engaged in a full-blown thought attack, you feel a little angry and stressed out, you know. Instead of living in the present, you know, your thoughts propel you back to the time, back to all the times that Kay has been less than perfect in the past, and forward now you anticipating her future transgressions. You know, as simple and ridiculous as this seems, this dynamic is played out constantly. You know, we've all heard the classic story of failing to put down a toilet seat ruined a marriage. You know, in reality, the toilet seat has nothing to do with it. You know, it has nothing to do with it. It's our analysis of the situation. You know, it's our analysis of the situation that caused the distress that we feel. You know, the thought. You know, like, I wonder why my partner can't remember to do this simple thing. You know, we started thinking that, and that leads to a series of rapid fire thoughts. You know, like, he always does things to piss me off, and you know, I can't believe everything I got to put up with. You know, I can't believe all the stuff I put up with. You know, and I bet he does this on purpose. You know, stuff like that. You know, we work ourselves up. You know, our thinking speeds up, and we left behind the present moment. You know. Left the present moment behind us, and now our thoughts are sped up, and we're in a full-blown thought attack. You know, such thought patterns occur habitually and automatically, and most of us don't even realize that we're entertaining them. You know, have we noticed how we, you know, were thinking before jumping on board the train of thought? You know, the quality of our thinking would have changed. You know, then we then could have, you know, has dismissed the thought as merely just a thought, not an emergency, and stayed at the speed of life. So that was the 5 stress reductions that I used, and I hope that they were helpful and useful to you too, and you can use them in your everyday life. So let's do a recap over the 5 stress reduction methods that we have gone over. And number one was knowing that inner peace is possible. You know, living at the present moment is always a possibility. Even when we feel stressed out, or as our lives are out of control, at any given moment, we can, you know that it's possible to feel better and calmer, even in the midst of chaos. Our mental health and inner peace is always close by. Even a moment of thought recognition can guide us back to tranquility. Number two. Number two was admitting that getting what we want isn't the ultimate answer. Yes. We all want things that we can't have. There's always a tendency to believe that if we could somehow get what we want, all would be well. If this were true, we would all be visions of peace right now. We all have many wishes, come true, but we continue to struggle. One of the important steps of reducing stress in your life is to admit that while getting what you want is nice, it isn't always the ultimate answer. A more peaceful, lasting solution is learning to find peace in the midst of a speeded up world, even when you can't get what you want. Okay, number three is learning not to deal with or struggle with problems. As tempting as it can be, struggling with problems rarely solves them. In fact, the mental struggle itself creates our stressful feelings and gets in the way of us gaining access to our wisdom. Dealing head on with problems usually speeds up our thinking and validates an enormous belief that stress comes from outside ourselves. Learning to find the free-flowing mode is a powerful and productive way to deal with problems. Okay, number four is understanding that stress originates in your thinking. Don't get caught up, as we have said. Often being caught up on your thinking is actually more relevant than the stress you feel than what it is that you happen to be caught up about. By learning to notice when you're getting caught up, you can leave behind those stressful thinking and slow down to the present moment of life. And number five is learning not to allow passing thoughts to turn into thought attacks. A single thought can't hurt you or bring stress in your life. Stress is a result of taking our thoughts to heart, taking them too seriously. When you learn to dismiss the speeded up stressful thoughts rather than allowing them to turn into full-blown thought attacks, you'll greatly reduce the stress in your life. Now, listen to my summary. All stress begins with a single thought, and is thought. What you do next with those initial stressful thoughts determine whether or not the stress will escalate and eventually overwhelm you. If you notice yourself thinking early in the process before you get caught up, if you experience thought recognition, you are living at the speed of life. Your thinking will shift to a free-flowing mode, and you'll be able to get yourself back on track, back in the moment. The higher your tolerance for stress, the longer it will take you to wake up to the fact that your mind is filling with stressful thoughts and moving you away from the speed of life. Instead of keeping your cool, staying calm, and calling on your wisdom, your mind will race a mile a minute, creating well-justified scenarios about how bad everything is. How little time do you have to do it all? How difficult other people can be, and so on. People with very high tolerance for stress have learned not to pay attention to the feelings that signals an impending thought attack. By contrast, if you lower your tolerance for stress, if you can catch your stressful thinking before it carries you away, your thinking will shift and you'll feel better before you know it. When you focus on the details of your life,
what's wrong and who's to blame, your mind moves too quickly to stay at the speed of life. Everything seems like an emergency and is blown out of proportion. But when you keep your bearings by noticing your stressful thinking earlier in the process, you'll be living at the speed of life. And when you live in a calm state of mind, the same thing that used to feel stressful will seem like mere bleeps on the radar. The thoughts that run through your mind won't seem so compelling and urgent. There will be nothing more than thoughts that have absolutely no power to hurt you or to create distress in your life.